I am Jarvis, your storyteller. Welcome to the science fiction exploration. If you like the story, please subscribe to our channel. Commander Alina Torres stood at the viewport of the International Space Station's new xenological research wing, watching Earth's familiar blue curve against the void of space. The emergency transmission she'd just received made her heart race. An entire alien civilization was facing extinction from an unprecedented heat wave on their homeworld. The Meridians had made first contact with humanity just 3 years ago. They were an advanced species whose achievements in quantum computing had revolutionized human technology. Now their planet's temperature had risen so dramatically that even their advanced environmental systems were failing. Thousands had already perished. "Commander, the Meridian ambassador is ready for your call," Lieutenant James Chen announced from his station. Alina nodded, straightening her uniform before stepping in front of the holographic communicator. Ambassador Zix's translucent form materialized, his crystalline skin structure dulled by exhaustion. "Commander Torres, thank you for responding so quickly. Our situation has become dire. The cooling stations are failing faster than predicted." Alina studied the environmental data streaming alongside the ambassador's image. The numbers were catastrophic: surface temperatures approaching 70 degrees C, humidity levels near zero, and rising atmospheric toxicity from failing filtration systems. "Our engineers have been studying your planet's crisis," Alina replied, pulling up her research team's findings. "We believe we can help. On Earth, we've developed experimental technology for extreme desert environments, a network of solar-powered atmospheric processors that could potentially cool your cities." Zix's crystalline features shifted in what Alina had learned was an expression of hope. "But Commander, our own cooling technology is far more advanced than Earth's. How could your system succeed where ours have failed?" Alina allowed herself a small smile. "Because sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Your cooling stations rely on complex quantum mechanics, requiring enormous power. Our system uses basic thermodynamic principles, enhanced by new metamaterials we've developed. It's not as efficient as your technology, but it's far more resilient to extreme conditions." She transmitted the technical specifications to Zix. The ambassador's eyes widened as he studied the designs. This could work, but implementation would require significant resources and coordination. We'd need your direct assistance. "I'll assemble a team immediately," Alina replied without hesitation. "We can be ready to launch within 48 hours." The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Alina selected her core team: Dr. Marcus Wang, Earth's leading expert in atmospheric engineering; Chief Technical Officer Ruchai Patel, whose work on metamaterials had made the cooling system possible; and Field Engineer David O'Neill, who had tested prototype versions in Earth's harshest deserts. As their ship approached the Meridian homeworld, Alina watched her team's faces as they took in the sight. The once beautiful crystalline cities were barely visible through a haze of heat distortion. Massive dust storms swept across the continents, their force visible even from orbit. "It's worse than the data suggested," Marcus muttered, adjusting his instruments. "The atmospheric degradation is accelerating." "Then we'll work faster," Alina replied firmly. "Ruchai, start running simulations for optimal placement of the primary cooling nodes. David, I want you coordinating with the Meridian engineering teams the moment we land. We're not just bringing them technology, we're bringing them hope, and I intend to deliver on that promise." Their ship descended through the superheated atmosphere, the hull creaking under the strain despite its advanced heat shielding. As they broke through the cloud layer, Alina saw the true scale of the crisis. The once gleaming crystal spires of the capital city were clouded and cracked from the heat. Streets were empty, the population sheltering in underground cooling centers that were rapidly failing. Ambassador Zix met them at the landing pad, accompanied by lead engineer Nix, whose expertise would be crucial to adapting the human technology to Meridian infrastructure. The aliens' normally graceful movements were sluggish in the oppressive heat. "Welcome to Meridia, Commander Torres," Zix said, his voice carrying both warmth and desperate urgency. "I fear you are our last hope." Alina stepped onto the scorching surface, feeling the heat even through her protective suit. She looked at the suffering city around them, then back to her team. Their faces showed determination, not doubt. They had come prepared for this challenge. "Then let's get to work," she replied, her voice steady with conviction. "We didn't come all this way to fail." The makeshift command center hummed with activity as Alina Torres studied the holographic map showing the first test zone. Red warning indicators blinked across the crystalline city sector where they'd installed the initial cooling nodes. The numbers weren't good. "The power draw is too high," Rache Patel announced, her fingers dancing across multiple control interfaces. "The metamaterial coating is working, but the city's power grid can't handle the load. We're seeing brownouts in adjacent sectors." Engineer Nix moved closer to the display, his crystalline form reflecting the harsh emergency lighting. "Our backup generators are already at maximum capacity if we lose power to the underground shelters." He left the grim implication unspoken. Alina felt the weight of thousands of lives pressing down on her shoulders. The cooling system worked in theory, but implementation was proving far more challenging than their simulations had predicted. The meridian atmosphere's composition was affecting heat dispersion patterns in unexpected ways. "What about the solar collectors?" David O'Neill asked, wiping sweat from his brow despite the building's failing climate control. "If we could expand the collection array—" A thunderous crack interrupted him. The building shuddered and warning alarms blared. Through the reinforced windows, Alina watched in horror as a massive crystal spire in the distance shattered, its structure failing under the thermal stress. The sound of its collapse echoed across the city like breaking glass. "That was Residential Tower 17, Nick said, his voice tight with grief. "It was already evacuated, but it shows we're running out of time," Alina finished. She turned to Marcus Wung, who had been quietly running calculations since the latest test results came in. "Talk to me, Marcus. What are we missing?" The atmospheric scientist looked up from his data pad, his expression thoughtful. "We're thinking too big. Trying to cool entire sectors at once is drawing too much power. But if we create a network of smaller, interconnected nodes—" "Like a mesh network?" Ruchai's eyes lit up with understanding. "Multiple small-scale cooling points working in harmony rather than a few large ones. The power requirements would be more manageable. And we could better control the convection currents," Marcus added. "Create cool air corridors that would gradually expand outward." A commotion at the command center's entrance drew their attention. Ambassador Zix hurried in, accompanied by several agitated Meridian officials. Alina recognized High Counselor Vix, whose opposition to primitive human technology had been vocal from the start. "Ambassador, what's happening?" Alina asked, though she could guess from Vix's hostile posture. "The Council is demanding we shut down the project," Zix said grimly. "The power fluctuations have caused panic. There are protests at the emergency shelters." "Shut it down," David stepped forward, anger clear in his voice. "If we stop now, all our progress—" "Progress?" Vix's crystalline form pulsed with colored light that Alina's cultural training identified as contempt. "Your human solutions have only made things worse. Our people are suffering while you experiment." Alina raised her hand, silencing David's heated reply. "Counselor, I understand your frustration, but we've identified the problem and have a new approach that will put far less strain on your infrastructure." "More human promises," Vix scoffed. "Our own scientists—" "Are welcome to review our new proposals," Alina interrupted firmly. "This isn't about human versus Meridian technology anymore. It's about survival, and we'll achieve that together or not at all." The command center fell silent. Alina held Vix's gaze, unflinching. Finally, Ambassador Zix spoke. "The commander is right. Division is a luxury we can no longer afford." He turned to Alina. "How long to implement your new approach?" 24 hours to reconfigure the first test zone," Rucha answered. "If it works, we can scale up sector by sector." "And if it fails?" Vix demanded. "Then we try something else," Alina said simply. "That's how humans solve problems, Counselor. We persist." The meeting was interrupted by another structural failure alarm. In the distance, another crystal spire developed ominous cracks. Elena watched the Meridian officials' faces as they stared at their dying city. 24 hours, Vix finally conceded. But if this fails, we do things our way. After the officials left, Elena gathered her team. They looked exhausted but determined. Rutch, start recalibrating the nodes. Marcus, I want updated atmospheric models for the new distribution pattern. David, coordinate with Nix on the power grid modifications. She managed a tired smile. Let's show them what human persistence can do. As her team dispersed, Elena returned to the holographic display. The city gleamed in false color, a beautiful but dying crystalline organism. Somewhere in this maze of technology and politics was the solution that would save these people. They just had to find it in time. Outside, the merciless sun continued to bake the alien world, ignorant of the desperate race against time playing out beneath its burning gaze. The new cooling network had been operational for 6 hours when everything went wrong. Elena was reviewing power distribution data with Engineer Nix when the emergency sirens began to wail. The command center's lighting shifted to deep red. Multiple grid failures detected, Rutch's voice carried across the chaos. We're losing power to the entire northern quadrant. Elena rushed to the main display, where cascading failure warnings painted a nightmare scenario. The mesh network of cooling nodes had been working. Surface temperatures had dropped 2 degrees in the test zone. But something was overloading the city's power distribution system. This doesn't make sense, David muttered, frantically checking readings. The power draw is within specified limits. There shouldn't be this kind of cascade effect. Nix's crystalline form pulsed with agitation as he accessed the city's infrastructure controls. The main power core is destabilizing. Containment systems are... He stopped, his alien features registering what Elena could only interpret as horror. The heat. It's affecting the quantum matrices faster than we predicted. How long until total failure? Elena demanded. 3 hours, maybe less. Nix's voice was grim. When it fails, we lose everything. Life support in the shelters, the cooling network, atmospheric processors. How many people are still in the affected sectors? Marcus asked, already pulling up evacuation protocols. 17,000 in the shelters, Ambassador Zix answered, hurrying into the command center. We've begun evacuations, but with surface temperatures still so high. Elena studied the power distribution map, her mind racing. They couldn't shut down the cooling network. Without it, surface temperatures would make evacuation impossible. But keeping it running was accelerating the power core's deterioration. What about the backup facilities? She asked. The secondary power core was damaged last week when Nix began. No, not your power systems. Elena turned to David. The solar collectors we installed for the cooling nodes, how much power are they generating? David checked his data pad. About 30% of what the network needs, the rest comes from the city grid. Could we modify them, push them beyond normal operating parameters? Rutch looked up sharply. The metamaterial coating, if we reconfigured it to focus solely on power generation instead of cooling. She was already running calculations. It would be dangerous. One mistake and we'd lose the collectors entirely. Better than losing the whole city, Elena said. She turned to Nix. We need access to your quantum engineering labs, and I need you to trust human ingenuity one more time. The alien engineer was silent for a long moment, internal lights pulsing as he considered. Finally, he straightened. I will help you, but we must work quickly. The next 2 hours were a blur of desperate innovation. While Marcus and Ambassador Zix coordinated the emergency evacuation, Elena worked with Nix and Rutch to modify the solar collectors. They were attempting something that violated several laws of physics, using meridian quantum technology to enhance human solar collection methods in ways neither species had attempted before. David coordinated from the field, redirecting power and manually adjusting collectors across the test zone. The surface temperature had climbed to nearly fatal levels, forcing him to work in short bursts even with his protective suit. Primary core at critical levels, the automated warning system announced. Containment failure imminent. Almost there, Ruchai muttered, making final adjustments to the quantum interface. Nix, are the containment fields ready? The alien engineer confirmed from his station. They had one chance at this. If the modified collectors overloaded, the resulting feedback could destroy what remained of the city's power grid. Alina took a deep breath. Begin power transfer sequence. The command center hummed as energy began flowing through the new system. Warning indicators flashed across every display as the collectors operated well beyond their designed capacity. Alina watched the power readings climb, silently urging them higher. Transfer at 60%, David reported from the field. Collector temperature approaching critical. Hold it together, Alina whispered. They needed at least 80% to stabilize the grid. A blinding flash from outside made everyone flinch. One of the collectors had overloaded, its metamaterial coating burned away. Then another failed. 75%, David called. We're losing them too fast. Alina turned to Nix. The quantum matrices, can you extend their field effect? That would breach every safety protocol. He paused, lights pulsing rapidly. Yes, I can do it. His crystalline hands moved across the alien controls with precise grace. The remaining collectors pulsed with strange energy as meridian quantum fields enveloped them, stabilizing the overtaxed systems. Power transfer at 90%, David's voice was triumphant. Grid stabilizing. The command center erupted in cheers as the primary core's warning signals finally began to recede. They had done it, human solar technology and meridian quantum engineering working in harmony to save the city. But Alina's relief was short-lived. As she studied the atmospheric readings, something caught her attention. The heat patterns didn't match any natural phenomenon she'd ever seen. There was an artificial regularity to them, almost like. Marcus, she called to the atmospheric scientist. Look at this. Does this look natural to you? He studied the data, his expression growing concerned. No, this isn't a natural heat wave at all. Someone is doing this to the planet. The discovery that the heat wave was artificial changed everything. Alina stood before the Meridian High Council, the evidence displayed in stark holographic detail above the chamber. The regular pattern of heat distribution, the unnaturally focused thermal radiation, the precise atmospheric interference, it all pointed to deliberate manipulation. This is impossible, High Counselor Vix declared, but his crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. Our orbital monitoring systems would have detected any device capable of causing this. Unless they were designed not to, Marcus explained, highlighting specific data points. The heat signature matches experimental terraforming technology. Someone has turned a planet-warming device against your world. The council chamber erupted in angry discussion. Alina watched the play of lights through the assembled Meridian's crystalline bodies, a storm of colors reflecting their agitation and fear. Ambassador Zix moved to her side. If what you say is true, this is more than an environmental crisis, he said quietly. This is an act of war. First, we need to find the device, Alina replied. Ruchai, show them what we found. The engineer stepped forward, projecting a new set of scans. We detected a blind spot in your orbital monitoring network, a section of space where your sensors mysteriously malfunction. We believe the device is hidden there using some form of advanced cloaking technology. That sector is under the jurisdiction of the Outer Colonies Trading Consortium, one council member noted. They've been pushing for greater autonomy from the central government. And they opposed our alliance with Earth, another added, called it a degradation of meridian purity. Alina exchanged glances with her team. The political implications were explosive, but they couldn't afford to wait for diplomatic solutions. Every hour the device remained active pushed the planet closer to environmental collapse. We need to send a team to investigate, she announced. A small ship might be able to slip past their detection systems. Out of the question, Vix snapped. If we're wrong about this, any unauthorized incursion into consortium space could trigger an internal war. And if we're right, your entire civilization dies, David shot back. The council chamber fell silent at his outburst. Alina stepped forward. We're not asking for military action. My team can modify one of our shuttles with Meridian cloaking technology. We go in quiet, confirm the device's existence, and gather the evidence you need to act. A human ship, Ambassador Zix mused. The consortium wouldn't expect that, but you'll need a Meridian engineer familiar with our stealth systems. I will go, Nix volunteered, surprising everyone. The engineer's usual methodical demeanor was replaced with quiet determination. I helped create this hybrid technology. I should help see this through. The council debated briefly, but the reality of their situation left little choice. Within hours, Alina's team was preparing for launch. The modified shuttle looked strange with its new crystalline components. Human and alien technology merged into something entirely new. Final systems check complete, Ruchai reported from the engineering station. The cloaking field is stable. Atmospheric processors are compensating for the heat stress, Marcus added. We should be able to maintain life support even if we have to pass through the affected zones. Alina studied the tactical display, where David had mapped their approach vector. The blind spot in the Meridian sensor network was massive. Finding a hidden device wouldn't be easy. But they had something their unknown adversary didn't expect: human ingenuity combined with Meridian precision. Remember, she addressed her team, we're looking for anything that doesn't belong. Power signatures, thermal anomalies, gravitational distortions. If this device is powerful enough to cook an entire planet, it can't hide everything. Assuming we get close enough to scan it, David said grimly. The consortium may not have expected humans, but they'll be watching. That's why we have an edge. Alina turned to Nix, who was calibrating his instruments. Your people built their security systems, you know their weaknesses. The alien engineer's crystalline surface rippled with colored patterns, amusement, Alina realized. Indeed, they rely too heavily on automation. Their arrogance makes them predictable. The shuttle's launch was kept quiet, masked by the routine traffic of emergency relief ships. As they climbed through the superheated atmosphere, Alina watched her homeworld dwindle beneath them. The beautiful crystal cities were barely visible through the heat haze, their spires still cracking and falling despite the temporary power solution they'd achieved. Entering consortium space, David announced tensely, cloaking field holding steady. Multiple patrol ships detected, Ruchai added, but they're maintaining standard search patterns. They haven't seen us. Alina leaned forward as they approached the sensor blind spot. Begin active scans. Let's find out what they're hiding up here. The shuttle's hybrid sensors reached out, combining human and Meridian detection methods in ways neither species had tried before. At first, they found nothing but empty space and background radiation. Then Nix straightened suddenly at his station. There, he said, manipulating the display. A distortion in the quantum field, very subtle, but... His voice trailed off as the implications hit him. Alina saw it too. The device wasn't just hidden, it was massive, far larger than they'd expected. A structure nearly a kilometer across, practically a small space station, hanging invisible in the void. That's not consortium technology, Nix said quietly. Those quantum signatures, they're Dominion. The name sent a chill through the cabin. The Dominion, a mysterious and aggressive species from the far reaches of known space. If they were behind this, the crisis was far bigger than a colonial dispute. The consortium isn't acting alone, Alina realized. They're working with the Dominion, but why target their own homeworld? Before anyone could respond, proximity alarms blared. Multiple ships were decloaking around them. They'd flown straight into a trap. The shuttle's warning systems screamed as enemy ships surrounded them. Alina's mind raced, calculating options. Their hybrid vessel was innovative but not designed for combat. 6 consortium ships, David reported tensely, and something bigger dropping out of stealth, Dominion warship. They're charging weapons, Ruchai warned. But Alina noticed something odd. They haven't fired yet, why? A harsh voice crackled over their comm system. Human vessel, you're in restricted space. Power down and prepare for boarding. Alina exchanged glances with Nyx. The alien engineer's crystalline form pulsed with rapid colors as he worked his console. "Commander," he whispered, "I'm detecting massive power fluctuations from the orbital device. They're increasing its output." "They're going to kill everyone," Marcus realized, checking atmospheric readings. "Surface temperatures are already climbing again. The city's power grid won't survive another spike." Alina made her decision. "Rutch, transfer all power to the metamaterial shielding. David, plot us a course straight for that device. Marcus, send everything we've discovered to both the Council and Earth. Nyx," she turned to their Meridian ally, "can you hack their control systems?" The engineer's crystalline surface flickered with determination. "With our hybrid technology? Yes, but we'll have to get closer." "Close enough to touch," Alina confirmed. She opened a channel to their attackers. "Consortium Control, this is Commander Alina Torres. We know you're working with the Dominion. We know what that device is doing to your own people. Ask yourselves, is your autonomy worth genocide?" "You understand nothing, human," a new voice responded, cold, artificial, distinctly Dominion. "The Meridian resistance to assimilation is irrelevant. Their world will be reformed, one way or another." The truth clicked into place. "The Consortium was just a pawn," Alina breathed. "The Dominion promised them independence, but they're really terraforming the planet for themselves." Their shuttle rocketed forward, weaving through enemy fire. The massive orbital device loomed ahead, its cloaking field flickering as they approached. David's piloting was masterful, using the hybrid ship's unique properties to move in ways the enemy didn't expect. "Consortium ships breaking formation," Rutch reported. "The revelation about the Dominion, some of them are standing down." "But not enough," David gritted as another blast rocked their vessel. "Shields at 40%. They were almost within range. Nyx worked furiously, attempting to breach the device's defenses with their combined technology. Alina watched the tactical display as more Consortium ships pulled back, their crews apparently realizing they'd been deceived. The Dominion warship, however, moved to intercept. Its massive form blocked their approach, weapons charging for a killing blow. "Nyx," Alina asked tensely. "Almost there," the engineer's crystalline form blazed with triumph. "The hybrid systems they didn't expect. I have control." "Reverse the device," Alina ordered. "Full power." The enormous orbital station hummed with energy, but now its purpose was inverted. Instead of concentrating heat on the planet, it began drawing it away, creating a massive heat sink in space. Warning signals blared as the Dominion ship fired. "Brace," David shouted. The blast struck, but something extraordinary happened. The metamaterial shielding, pushed beyond its limits, didn't just absorb the energy. It redirected it, feeding it into the orbital device's new programming. The attack actually strengthened their efforts. "Surface temperatures dropping," Marcus exclaimed. "It's working." The Dominion ship fired again, but more Consortium vessels had turned against it, engaging their former allies. The massive warship found itself caught between defending against the locals and stopping Alina's team. "Temperature reduction accelerating," Nyx reported. "The quantum matrices are adapting, creating a cascading effect. The device is becoming more efficient at heat dispersal." Through the viewport, Alina watched in awe as visible waves of heat rippled up from the planet's atmosphere, drawn into space by their reprogrammed machine. The Dominion ship made one last attempt to stop them, but coordinated fire from the Consortium fleet drove it back. "They're retreating," David announced. "Dominion ship preparing for jump to FTL." "Let them go," Alina said. "We have more important things to worry about, status of the surface." Marcus grinned at his readings. "Temperature dropping to normal levels, the crystal cities, the heat stress is diminishing. We did it." The celebration was interrupted by a transmission from the surface. Ambassador Zix's image appeared, his crystalline form glowing with joy. "Commander Torres, you've saved our world. The Council is calling for immediate sanctions against the Dominion and a full investigation of Consortium leadership. but more importantly, they're calling for a deeper alliance with Earth. We succeeded because we worked together, Alina replied. Human innovation and Meridian technology, creating something greater than either alone. Indeed, Nix added, his usual stoic demeanor softened by pride. Perhaps that was what the Dominion feared most, not our resistance, but our cooperation. As their shuttle turned toward home, Alina watched the orbital device continuing its work, now a symbol of protection rather than destruction. Below, the crystal cities sparkled in the sunlight, no longer shrouded by heat distortion. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not through the superiority of either species, but through the power of working together. "Take us home, David," she said quietly. "I think this is just the beginning."